I don't remember much about the first Fantastic Four movie. I didn't see it until long after it was out. I remember the second one pretty clearly, but all I can remember from the first one is the toilet paper scene.
Pooping.
And Jessica Alba. And this movie was obviously on my mind because of the new Fantastic Four movie coming out, and I hope it's good, but
I herald his beginning. I herald your end. I herald.
This casting feels off to me. Everyone seems too old. Pedro Pascal is already 50, meaning Mr. Fantastic will qualify for Medicare before his kid graduates high school. Also, why do you have a mustache? Could you not have shaved it for the movie? And why is the Thing's head so small? These proportions look all wrong. And what the heck is up with your Lego? Did you get stung by bees? What is happening here? Do we even know if the girl Silver Surfer species still retains the ability to turn their stomachs into a TV?
It is known by many names.
I have many questions and concerns, yet I still hold on to hope. And reviews I've seen have been decent, so that's good. But also it doesn't matter because at the end of the day I'm a gamer. And as a gamer I rest assured that at least the industry I'm a patron of totally knows what it's doing. I know I can always count on you not to screw up things that are very important to me. Enter Fantastic Four on the Nintendo GameCube, a game that's pretty decent, is only 2-player, and is on PlayStation and Xbox as well. It's roughly based on the plot of the 2005 movie, but with a few extra areas, bosses, and characters that weren't in the movie. Now, most of this can be chalked up to just being standard practice for games based on movies because games need more content, but that's not 100% what's going on here. If you find these fantastic tokens hidden in levels, and use some points to purchase others, you can unlock interviews with the movie cast, Stan Lee, and the developers. In them, they mention how the game actually had to start development before the movie script was finalized, leading to some things that were in the game being cut from the movie. This is probably why the movie tie-in genre completely died too if they were having problems with development time back in 2005. It would take a crazy amount of planning to even get a mid-budget movie game tie-in out today. I mentioned interviews with the movie cast, and that's because they all reprise their roles for the game, which is awesome. You can tell Michael Chiklis has so much passion for the character of the Thing. It's also great to hear Stan Lee talk about the Fantastic Four in what I'm pretty sure is an exclusive interview for this game. This is a great bit of fan service that more games could benefit from copying. So it has a good set of bones with the movie cast all returning, the plot being based on what I think was a decently fun story, great extras, and devs who clearly had a passion for what they were doing. But how's the meat of the game? How's the gameplay? Well, if I could describe it in one word, I would use flawed. It's not bad by any means and has a lot of excellent ideas, but it just kind of misses the mark on a lot of what it's trying to do. If I could compare this to any other game series I've played, the closest would be the OG God of War games. But given the first God of War came out the same year, it's definitely not a God of War clone like so many other games would later be. Instead, it seems to be inspired by the same games that inspired God of War, namely Onimusha, which I haven't played. Like in God of War, the main idea is to use its combo system and the team's array of special moves, which are limited to a stamina meter that slowly recharges, in order to defeat large hordes of enemies in confined spaces. Each of the characters has different combos and special attacks triggered by similar button presses, and like in God of War, you can upgrade certain moves to be more powerful. As you can imagine, each character's attacks and special moves take inspiration from their given superpowers. Reed Richards can do stretch punches, this spinny attack, and also deploy suicide bomber drones just like in the movie. Sue Storm can turn invisible, do force fields, and spin around in them as an intimidation tactic. She can also freeze enemies and do some force blasts, and she also has this incredible jump animation. Johnny Storm is probably the most fun to use as you can upgrade his fireball and absolutely shred enemies and bosses from a distance with ease, but he also has some good close range attacks where he does some spinning around and such. The Thing also feels really good to use, with powerful slams and thunderclaps that are good for crowd control. I'd say all characters are really fun to use except for Reed, who's just pretty average. The biggest issue I have with this game is its combo system, in that I can never seem to get it to work reliably. It's like there's a weird timing delay for when you press the buttons, and it just feels so cumbersome and unintuitive. If I really concentrate, I can get it to work, but it's a far cry from the quick and snappy combos of God of War. Another big problem I have is the level theming for some of the worlds about an hour into the game. You go into an underground sewer kind of area, and I could barely make out what was happening on screen. I don't think this was just a problem with my TV either. I've never had this issue in other games. I'm pretty sure it's just the aesthetic. It's just too dark and drab. Other worlds can have a different visual problem of just having too much going on screen, which is made worse by the fact that this was 2005, and graphics weren't exactly the best at doing little details at the time, so sometimes it can look a little too complicated and distracting. The level design isn't always great either. It's pretty much go room to room beating up enemies and repeat. A positive thing I have to say about the levels, though, is that they didn't cheap out on the furniture. Look at how many hits it takes a man who is literally on fire to break this wooden cabinet. That's not cheap particle board. That has got to be handcrafted by the Amish. You gotta give them props for that. There's some mild platforming sections scattered throughout, and like with the combo system, the platforming also feels incredibly delayed from when I press the buttons, to the point where making 3 jumps in a row took me like 20 tries. And all the puzzles are either brain dead or something that I needed to Google because I had no idea what it wanted from me. I can't really think of any well thought out and intuitive puzzles from the game. You do have these dumb key puzzles, sponsored by Samsung, but I'm not really a huge fan of them. On the positive side, some of the bosses gave me a good challenge, and it's cool to be able to select any of the Fantastic Four characters at once. But again, other bosses and mini-bosses were more of a chore, especially this stupid one in the sewers. I hate this guy. The saving grace of this game is that the character's special moves are really fun to use, and when I ignored the standard attacks and was in a level with less graphically intense elements, I had a lot of fun. I bet if this didn't have to come out alongside the movie, they could have really polished this into something special. Speaking of the movie again, some of what I think are the game's standout moments come from when they get to pull from the comics instead of the movie. You get some other classic Fantastic Four villains appearing in the story like Puppet Master, Mole Man, and Annihilus. And they take you to some pretty fun and interesting areas, but the coolest part in my opinion is the inclusion of Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. I was genuinely shocked by this and did the thing where I point at the screen with my mouth slightly ajar. In one of the interviews that you can unlock, the story writer for the game, Zach Penn, states that he wanted to include Nick Fury in the movie, but they actually couldn't at the time. This was interesting because he was very involved with the Marvel movie scene back in the mid to late 2000s, writing scripts for some of the X-Men movies, The Incredible Hulk, and the first draft in what would become Marvel's The Avengers. In a way, this game kind of heralded the coming of that larger universe. Again, I can't praise the unlockable interviews enough, they're legitimately cool. I feel like I should also mention that you can unlock concept art, comic covers, and character bios, and the character bios really give you some information that I bet you didn't know about these guys. For example, did you know the Aztec warrior was married 24 times with 210 kids, but is back on the trail looking for love while he drinks blood socially? Or how about Horus, the god of light who hates bad manners but loves torchlit dinners and Hilary Duff? You can also check out this Daily Bugle headline entitled "Anime is Real." And if that's not fun enough for you, you can check out Nick Fury's testimony in front of the Congress's House Appropriations Committee. They were discussing funding for this prison that immediately malfunctioned when you entered it in the game. When I saw how incompetently run this facility was, I should have figured my tax dollars were somehow involved. You can also unlock 2 levels for a bonus mini-campaign based on the comics instead of the movie, but I found the level designs to be pretty bad and uninspired for these. They're not really worth your time, or at least the first one isn't. But all that said, it's time for the bottom line. Should you play Fantastic Four on the GameCube, PS2, or Xbox? Well, I would say if you're a fan of the characters, it's a good enough game to be worth your time. But if you're not a fan of the Fantastic Four, and if you're just a fan of video games in general, there's probably better options out there for you. The review score at the time of its release was around a 6 or a 7, and I'd say that score is probably still about right. I could say for myself, though, that I don't regret my time spent with this one. I'm not huge into the comics, but I do like the characters based on their appearances in other media, and from what little comics I've had read to me on YouTube. I'm glad it tried to be something different from other licensed games at the time. It had ambition, and even if it didn't fully pay off, I'm still happy I played through it. And at that, I want to thank you for watching Hydrated Gaming. Here's to hoping the new movie is good, and I'll see you next time.